How do you start a networking conversation without feeling fake? Lead with curiosity. I'm Greg, I'm the introverted networker, and in this series I'm tackling 20 of the toughest networking questions I tend to get from people. And this question, how do I start a networking conversation without feeling fake, is one that a lot of people run into when they're trying to connect with somebody online. So maybe they're looking at somebody on LinkedIn, they work at a company they're interested in, or they work in a role that they're interested in, and they want to reach out to them and they want to connect with them, start a conversation online with them, and hopefully move to a voice-to-voice conversation with them, but they don't want it to come off as really fake. So what I would always say is just be curious. Be curious and ask them questions about themselves that would lead for them to respond. So for example, if you saw somebody who works at a company that you're interested in, you could send a connection request or a message to somebody that says, hey, I see you're working at this company and I was curious how your experience was, or how long you've worked there, or what your role is, or what's the best part you like about it. Something about that just says, hey, I really just want to get to know you and kind of, understand what it is you like about that organization. So just be curious about them. Ask them about themselves. Or maybe somebody who worked on a project or did something in a role that you're interested in. You could say, hey, I see you had the role of blank at such and such a company, and I really love to know what the best parts of that role were, or what some of the things were that you'd like to do differently. So those kind of questions, they're pretty non-threatening, right? You're basically asking the person to kind of write back and give you a short little answer. If you really want to make this even easier to get a response, because really what you want to do is you don't want to make the question so hard that it takes the person forever to respond. But one thing you can do is you can sort of give them options, right? And you could say, hey, I see you're in a role. I'm also in a role that I'm interested in. Would love to get your perspective on something. I learned about whatever the topic is recently, and I was wondering if you thought A, something about that role, or B, something else about that role. All you have to do is respond and give me an A or B. So basically you're saying, I learned something, here's my thoughts on it. I was wondering if you agreed with A or you agree with B. All you have to do is give me an A or B answer, right? So you're making it really, really simple for them to answer that question. There's a guy named Austin Belcak, Belcak, who writes on LinkedIn. He has a website, has a company that does a lot to help people get jobs. He's one of the people I got that from, that make it really easy to respond. But it makes a lot of sense, because the easier it is for somebody to respond to you with a message, the easier it is for you to sort of get them to respond, and then you continue the conversation. So once they've responded once, they're more likely to respond again if you were to write something back. So I think the key thing is, whenever you're reaching out to anybody, whether it's online on LinkedIn or whether you're just talking to somebody, is just ask them questions about themselves. Be curious about them. Lead with curiosity. And that's going to make it feel less fake, less awkward, less forced. So hope that helps. Again, I'm Greg. I'm the introverted networker. You can watch all of these videos on my playlist, my 20 most common networking questions and how I fix them, on YouTube. So subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also, you can subscribe to my newsletter called The Introverted Networker. Link is in the description. So go ahead and subscribe to that so you can get all my best networking tips and tricks.